Across the Flow FM network, a Flow News 24 update.
Well, today on Flow News, we take a look at the impact of young people, both in politics but also in carrying the weight of the tax burden. We often hear it said that future generations will be paying for the decisions of governments of the past, and in a lot of ways that is indeed the case. But there is some discussion in an article by Shane Wright today in The Age, and a report from the Parliamentary Budget Office shows that the average tax rate across all Australians will reach a two-decade high, that is of about 25.5%. Now, this slated to rise to a record 27.1% of wages in the 2030 period. So these are income taxes that people will pay. Now, the Public Budget Office notes that younger Australians will have to bear a larger share of the tax burden as the nation ages and governments spend more on providing services for older people and the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS. Now, we've known it for a long time, but it now appears that generation of young people are moving into that tax bracket where they are actually paying more. We see that in the mining sector and even in the farming sector, where young people are earning significantly higher wages than the average worker, say, in the city in an office, that type responsible job. So now what we are hearing is that there is a move, and the Budget Office is saying that young people will be more responsible for paying for the taxes of the older generation as they age and as they go on to disability. And I guess this is the impact of past policy, but it's also the impact of an ageing population in relation to the baby boomers and those moving through into a larger component of disability. But here's the other point that was made today from James Massola from The Age, and they talk about the millennials and Gen Z shaping politics in the future. And if you're paying the taxes and you're more responsible for them, it may be your generation that wants to have more say about what policy actually happens within the parliaments. And what the Centre for Independent Studies has found, that analysis of voting trends has concluded that the federal coalition could potentially remain in opposition for some time. Now, the reason for this is as the appeal of the opposition in voting trends for millennials and Generation Z. The percentage of millennials shifting their vote to the coalition has increased, but it's only increased by 0.6%, and that's through each election. So while support for the coalition among Generation Z is falling, the analysis has prompted some Liberal MPs to urge the party to engage more actively with younger Australians. And I think this goes some way to explaining that our education system, quite often in the state system particularly, but even in the private sector, the teachers that are there have come out of universities that largely have got lecturers that have been leaning in the left side of politics more so than, say, in the more conservative ideas and the range of views that, say, the conservative view would put out. And as a result, your teachers and your staff are quite often moved towards the left, or what they might call the socialist ideals, rather than necessarily the old free market and capitalistic thoughts and processes. So younger people may be more indoctrinated towards that, and it's taking longer for them to move across, say, into their 40s and 50s towards the voting trend for the more conservative party. So it is interesting that younger people are going to have a definite say. Right now, I reckon they're starting to enter into the political debate, but even more so in paying for the future of the Australian population.
A Flow News 24 update.